Hello, I'm Alan Matthews from Classical Guitar Shed, and I work with a lot of guitarists, and I would be blind if I had not noticed a bunch of problems that people have when learning pieces of music. So we want to set out and learn a new piece of music, and then we encounter all these issues. Well, in this video, we've got seven mistakes that people make when learning new pieces of music on the classical guitar. These are typically composed pieces of music, but it also works with any sort of song that you're learning. Tabs, notation, anything else. So 7 mistakes. Number 1, buckle up, because we're going in. So mistake number 1 is just playing it all the way through repeatedly. This is a Matteo Carcassi etude, one of my favorite scale etudes. And when somebody would be learning this, it would be if they just started with the very first note and then just played it all the way through over and over and over and over and over, hoping that eventually it all comes together. And this is the worst way to learn music and learn pieces of music. It just puts all kind of problems in there that have to be fixed later, but typically aren't fixed, and so it just ends up being ragged. So what do we do instead? Well, there's a bunch of different ways that we can learn pieces of music well. One is just to play just the first measure, and then just work on that, and then work on just the second measure, and then put those two measures together. You can also do that from the back. So learn the very last measure, work on that, and then the measure before that, and then put them together, and then tack on another measure and go from the back to the front. There's also a 7-step process that works very well that I'm a huge fan of, and I'm a big proponent of it. There's an ebook that you can download in the description below. Whatever process you use, it's great to not just play through all the way from the top to the bottom over and over. Instead, use some sort of process to learn the piece. Okay, that brings us to number 2. Assuming that you're not playing it all the way through, then that means that we're breaking it up into sections and practicing little bits at a time. The second mistake people make is working on too large of a bit at a time. So in other words, this is the first page. So then just learning the first page and working on that, or even just a couple of lines. It could be from here all the way down to here. Just a little pro tip for you. You always want to cross the bar line one note with whatever section size you do, because that's the way that music works. So don't stop at a bar line, go one note over. That's an aside. So working on too much material all at once. Instead, break it up into a really small section, just 4 measures or 2 measures, or even just 1 measure at a time. Again, always crossing the bar line. Work on that little bit by itself and work out all the little thorny issues. And that leads us quite well into number 3, which is not identifying and solving the problems in the sections that we're working on. So if we're working on a section, we've made our nice small section, and there's a spot where we always go wrong. Instead of just plowing through there and keeping on going and thinking, you know what, I just need more repetitions here. Instead, we want to take that spot out, we want to take it over to the workbench, and we want to take that thing apart and look at it every which way so that we can figure out exactly what's going on. This is the art of practice, really, is figuring out how to identify and solve problems in our practice. This is how we get better. It's how we polish pieces. And so the very first step to that is not accepting the problems when they arise in the piece, but actually stopping and seeking to solve the problem. And there are a bunch of different techniques, there are different methods and formulas and tricks that we can use to do that. And that is the study of learning to practice the guitar well. But the very first step, again, is just stopping and doing something with it. The 4th mistake that people make when learning new pieces of music is not using consistent fingerings in the left hand and the right hand both. So in this piece of music, I'm using this one because it has all of these fingerings written in, because this is a course that our members have access to. With this one, we have all of these fingerings written in, P-I-M-A, P-I-M-A. These are the right hand fingerings, and then the left hand fingerings are these numbers down by the strings down here. Well, even if these aren't written in, you need to figure out which finger is going to play which note, and then ideally you do it that way every time. And that is so that once you get up to speed, then you always have the same fingers that you can trust that your fingers know in the nervous moment of sharing with people that they know where to go. You're actually training some good habits in there. And so it makes it very slow at first to actually figure out what are the right hand fingerings, especially this is the one that people oftentimes throw away, is just they just let the right hand do whatever it does. And the left hand fingerings are more intentional because oftentimes they're more obvious. But getting the right hand fingerings as well is really a great way to bump your level up in the things that you're playing. You have to play intentionally. You have to actually know what's going on down there. And that's going to get you up to the intermediate level, or from the intermediate to the advanced level, whatever level you are. If you get more awareness around your right hand fingering, you will be a step up. Number 5, cinque in Italian, is not going in with the intention to memorize. And many people, before you get scared, many people are really daunted by the idea of memorizing a big piece of music. And so they always use the sheet music. And that's fine. You don't actually have to memorize everything that you play. But if you go in with the intention of memorizing it, so tell yourself, I'm going to be tested on this later. I'm going to try to play this from memory later, or I need to play this from memory later. Your brain just perks up in a different way. So all of a sudden you start noticing more in the music if you think that you're going to memorize it. So even if you really don't, this is a trick you can play on your mind so that you actually learn the piece faster. And how do you do that? Well, you just look at it and say, okay, the first note, I'm going to play with the 3 finger. This is a C, and I'm going to play it with my 3rd finger. Just telling yourself that, you will learn that faster so that you don't need to look at the music and actually look at what is that next note. Instead, your brain is already picking it up because it feels like it's going to be tested on it later. So, pro trick, act like you're going to memorize the piece, have the intention to memorize, and you will learn it faster. And now we come to number 6. And this is one that I am guilty of. It takes all my energy and all my self-control to keep this one in check, and I don't always succeed. And that is playing too fast, practicing too fast. Speed creates the illusion of perfection. When we're playing fast, it sounds right because our minds don't have time to actually pick up on how bad it actually sounds. So we're gonna let the rhythm issues slip. We might have buzzes and clicks and stuff that we could avoid, the placement of our fingers behind the frets, all of these things, that gets shoddy and we don't notice because we're playing too fast. And so instead, keeping it slow in practice is a much better way to do it. It also doesn't allow us to rely on our muscle memory. When we slow it down, we actually have to know the next note. There's no muscle memory involved in what I'm playing right now because it's too slow. But this, playing it fast, your muscle memory can take over and you can have all sorts of messiness and dirtiness in the pattern or in the process that your mind's going through to actually get those notes. And those come out when you try to play it for people or when you try to record it. Then all of a sudden they're glaring and you're saying, but it sounded so good in practice. Well, heads up, it didn't sound good in practice. It's just that you were playing too fast and didn't hear what it really sounded like. And then whenever you get into a pressure situation, you do hear what it sounds like. And so then you realize that something happened. It's different, but it's not different. You're different in that moment. So instead, in your practice, keep it nice and slow when you're learning things. That means that you'll have more correct repetitions. And so you're training less bad habits or mistakes into the piece. And so then the polishing phase is also so much faster because you have less to polish because you have actually trained your hands to do it right the first time. So really great tip. I'm talking to myself here as much as I am talking to you. Keep it slow in practice and keep it clean. And finally, we come to number 7. Lucky number 7. And this problem is, I've also been guilty of this one, especially in school. I think the schools really encourage this. And that is abandoning previous music as soon as we start working on the new piece. This is especially true if we've just had some sort of performance, we've been working up a piece, and then we play it for people, and then the next day we think, that's great, what a success, I'm gonna learn a new piece of music. And then we just stop playing the older material altogether. And then all of a sudden it's been 2 months and we go back to it and it's not there anymore and it's heartbreaking. And so instead of letting the new piece of music completely take over your practice, because it's really exciting, it is the shiny new thing, right? And so it's going to want to. You're going to be excited about the new piece of music, whereas the old piece of music you may well be tired of because you've been actually working on it and doing all these things that we've been talking about. And so instead of doing that, let the new piece just be a portion of your practice, and you may even set a timer and say, I've got 10 minutes that I can work on this new piece, and then the rest of my practice is working on my technique practice and also my older pieces that I'm still working up or keeping in my hands. And so that way, whenever it is time to play, you have more music to play, and the work that you're doing so well in your practice actually sticks around and increases with time. So it actually is still valuable. You still know your music. So this has been 7 mistakes that guitarists make when learning new pieces of music. I'll just run through them one more time here. Number 1 is working through the entire thing all in one go, playing it through repeatedly. This is also called sight reading it to death, playing over and over. The second one is working on too large of sections. So instead, keep your practice section small. Number 3 is not identifying and solving real problems in the music, and instead just glazing over the mistakes. Number 4 is not keeping consistent fingerings and knowing our fingerings in our left hand and the right hand. Number 5 is not going in with the intention to memorize. Just pretend like you're going to memorize the piece, whether you are or not. Better yet, actually memorize it. Number 6 is playing too fast, too soon. Speed creates the illusion of perfection. And so don't fall into that illusion. Don't be pulled into that trap. And number 7 is abandoning the pieces that you have been working on prior to the new piece and letting the new piece completely take over the game. Instead, keep your repertoire up, keep your other pieces alive and moving forward and getting better and better so that you have more music to play when you want to just play some music. All right, if you've enjoyed this, then I hope that you will watch some more of these videos, or even better, you can check out our program over at classicalguitarshed.com. We've got a full program, step by step, that our members really enjoy and brings your playing to a much higher level in no time. All right, enjoy your day. I'll talk to you soon.